Brazilian football players have lit up the world for decades, but what makes them so good? Why do so many of the greatest players come from a poor country with little opportunity and, quite simply, an impossible start? These are 5 of the greatest Brazilian stories in football history for us to answer the simple question, what makes Brazilians so great at football? And starting off with the greatest striker of all time, Ronaldo Nazário. Ronaldo Nazário grew up in the Brazilian favelas, rose to the very top of European football, and then fell victim to one of the most heartbreaking downfalls in the sport's history. He scored over 400 career goals, won 2 World Cups and 2 Ballon d'Ors, but suffered some of the worst injuries a football player has ever faced. So, this is the insane rise and the tragic fall of the greatest striker football has ever seen, Ronaldo Nazário.
For me, he was not playing football, he was football.
Ronaldo is special.
The best football player I have ever seen on a pitch.
This crazy story begins on the 8th of September 1976 in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, because on that day, Ronaldo Luiz Nazário de Lima was born. But that's a long name, so we'll stick with Ronaldo Nazário for the video. Ronaldo had 2 older siblings, and their upbringing was difficult, to say the least. Ronaldo's father was a phone technician, and his mother was a housewife, meaning that there wasn't much money in the family. But as we see with most football legends, this tough upbringing was just fuel to work harder and escape poverty. From a very young age, Ronaldo's football talent became clear as he used to play on the streets in Brazil. His mother says that she always found him on the streets with a football when he was supposed to be in school, and it's that love for the sport that took Ronaldo to the very top of the game. At 11 years old, Ronaldo's parents separated, which just made life that little bit harder for him. But of course, that meant he had more fuel and drive to really make it. Now, Ronaldo didn't actually start out playing football. Instead, he grew up playing futsal, which is where he credits his skills and dribbling ability, but when he was 14 years old, he was spotted by Brazilian legend Jairzinho, and from that moment he saw him, he knew that Ronaldo was going to be a star. So he helped him make the move to football and join the São Cristóvão Youth Academy, where he shined. At just 15 years old, he was already playing for the under-20 team, and he was getting so good that bigger clubs started to look at him. He wanted to move to Flamengo and was given a trial with the club, but he couldn't afford the bus fare to get there, so they rejected him. Instead, he signed for Brazilian club Cruzeiro. 4 goals on his youth team debut meant he got a call-up to the first team within just 3 months of arriving, and just like that, Ronaldo signed his first pro contract with the club. Now, Cruzeiro is an important part of Ronaldo's story, and you'll see exactly why later on in his life. But for now, Ronaldo was 16 years old with more talent than anyone could imagine, and was about to start his professional football career. Skinny, head-shaven, and hungry to win, Ronaldo tore it up at Cruzeiro. He had it all, even from such a young age. Headers, stepovers, and screamers were just a part of life for the Brazilian. On October 5th, 1993, Ronaldo scored his first career hat-trick, making him the youngest player to do so since Pelé, and just 1 month later, he scored 5 goals in a single game, which was the day the world started to take notice of the striker. Ronaldo spent a total of 2 seasons at Cruzeiro, where he scored 44 goals in 47 games. He approached every single game in the same way, like a dog who had just been let off the leash for the first time. This was a constant throughout his entire career, as he was fearless approaching every match. This all-out approach is what made him so great, but is sadly what also led to his severe downfall. But we'll get to that soon. In the summer of 1994, Ronaldo was called up with Brazil to play at the World Cup. Although he didn't play a minute in the competition, Brazil won the tournament, meaning he picked up a World Cup winner's medal at just 17 years old. That same summer, all the European clubs had their eyes on Ronaldo. Man United almost got their hands on him, but they couldn't sort out a work permit, so he ended up making a £4 million move to Dutch club PSV Eindhoven. At PSV, Ronaldo just kept getting better, and by 18 years old, he was already considered as one of the best strikers in the world. He was an impossible player to defend, as he was quicker with the ball than without it, and had the best dribbling that any striker had ever had before. He spent a total of 2 seasons at PSV where he won the Eredivisie Top Scorer Award in 1995 and the Dutch Cup in 1996. He kept up the same scoring rate he had in Brazil with almost a goal a game with 54 goals in 58 matches, and in the summer of 1996, Barcelona broke the world record transfer fee to sign Ronaldo on an 8-year contract for a total fee of £20 million, meaning at just 19 years old, Ronaldo was the most expensive player in the history of football, and he was ready to make that price tag look like a bargain. This season at Barcelona is where Ronaldo was at his physical peak just before the major issues would begin. He was no longer a skinny kid. He had built up a considerable amount of strength, making him the perfect athlete. This year, he was simply unstoppable, scoring 47 goals in 49 games for Barcelona. This saw him pick up the European Golden Shoe and meant that at just 20 years old, he was already seen as the next football great. There were many comparisons to the likes of Pelé, Maradona, and Van Basten, to the point where Ronaldo was the natural heir to their thrones. It's during this season that he was given the nickname El Fenomeno, or in English, the Phenomenon, and he also signed a 10-year deal with Nike, along with a lifetime endorsement deal which was worth over £160 million. From the streets of Rio to generational wealth in a matter of years. Now that's some story, but this story is about to get even crazier very soon. But before that, I really need your help because I'm trying to hit 100,000 subs this year. This has been my dream ever since I was a kid, so I'd really appreciate if you'd help me out. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's get back to football. After this insane season, Ronaldo at Barcelona had verbally agreed on a new contract which would see him double his wage and extend the 8-year deal. But after the club's lawyers took a look at the contract, they said it was absurd and blocked the renewal. This saw Inter Milan swoop in and sign him for £27 million, actually breaking the world transfer record that he had just set the year before. He landed in Italy, and the same story continued. He was on fire, scoring 25 goals in his first season, winning the Serie A Player of the Season award. He also picked up the Ballon d'Or this year, making him the youngest player to ever win the award at only 21 years old. After this first season in Milan, Ronaldo and Brazil had the 1998 World Cup to play, where Brazil fought their way to the World Cup final, with Ronaldo chipping in with 4 goals along the way. But the night before the final against France, Ronaldo suffered a convulsive fit, which meant he should have been left out of the match. Somehow, he still managed to play, but it was clear he wasn't 100% on the day because he was only a shadow of the player he usually was, as France sank Brazil 3-0 to lift the World Cup. After this blow, Ronaldo returned to Inter for the 98-99 season, hoping to set the Serie A on fire once again, and he started off the season by doing just that. But this year wasn't all up for Ronaldo, as he picked up a couple of injuries along the way. Nothing too serious, but enough to stunt his progress that season, meaning he only managed to play 19 Serie A games and score 14 goals in the process. The fans were hoping that this would just be an off-season for the best player in the world, but as he returned next season, nobody was ready for the devastating downfall that was about to occur. Going into the 1999-2000 season, Ronaldo was named as the captain of Inter Milan, and Inter had very high hopes for the season ahead. But on the 21st of November, in a league game against Lecce, these hopes would be shattered. During this game, Ronaldo felt something wrong in his knee and was forced to leave the pitch early. He thought this was just a minor injury, but the medical staff later found out that he ruptured a tendon in his knee and required surgery, meaning he was set to miss at least 6 months of football. This was a real blow for Ronaldo and for Inter, as he was clearly the best player in the world at the time. But despite this setback, Ronaldo fought his way back through the recovery, and after 6 long months, he was deemed fit to play again. On the 12th of April 2000, Ronaldo made his way back onto the pitch, ready to regain his electric form, but this day marked the worst moment in his career. After only 6 minutes back on the pitch in the Coppa Italia final against Lazio, Ronaldo was running at the defense doing his famous stepovers that he had done 1,000 times before, but this time he just collapsed to the floor in agony. It turned out that Ronaldo suffered a complete rupture of the kneecap, tendons, an injury even worse than what he had last time. The club physio says that his kneecap actually exploded, making this the worst injury he had ever seen before. This injury was so bad that he had to not only miss the rest of this season, but missed the entire next season also. Because of this, the captaincy was taken off him and handed to Javier Zanetti, as it looked like Ronaldo's career was over. Surely his career was over. There was no coming back from an injury like this, right? In the summer of 2002, there was a World Cup to play. 4 years on from the Brazilian heartbreak against France in 1998, Ronaldo wasn't meant to make it to this tournament. The injury he had was supposed to finish his career, but in what is quite possibly the greatest career comeback in football history, Ronaldo somehow got fit for the end of the 2001-2002 season, and after more than 2 years out of the game, he came back and scored 7 goals in Inter's final 10 games of the season. This meant he was back and fit to play in the World Cup. But he wasn't only injury-free, he was angry and fired up, ready to dominate this World Cup. He showed up to the tournament with the most iconic haircut in football history and put on a show like no other. 8 goals in the tournament, including a brace in the final against Germany, saw Ronaldo Nazario lift the World Cup trophy for the second time in his career. But this time, he was the focal point of the team. Because of his World Cup heroics, he was handed the 2002 Ballon d'Or, naming him as the best football player in the world, as he was so clearly back to his best. Now, at this time, Florentino Perez was collecting the Infinity Stones with Real Madrid as he was splurging out on the best players in the world. And in this same summer, Ronaldo was the latest addition to the Galacticos, making a £46 million move away from Inter Milan to sign for Real Madrid. His signing broke the all-time jersey sale record in 24 hours, as the fans were so excited to have the best player in the world at their club. He actually arrived at Real Madrid slightly injured, which might have been a warning sign for the Real Madrid fans, but they didn't care because he quickly recovered and led Madrid to La Liga that season with 30 goals in 44 games. Probably the highlight of his Real Madrid career would have to be the hat-trick he scored against Man United at Old Trafford that even got the Man United fans up on their feet to clap for his brilliance. In the next season at Real Madrid, he suffered an injury late in the season, and without Ronaldo, they collapsed in all competitions, finishing the season trophyless, although Ronaldo still had a great season on a personal level. The 2004-05 season was basically a repeat of the previous in the sense that Ronaldo performed individually, picked up a couple of injuries, and Real Madrid didn't win anything significant, but this was the last time we would see Ronaldo Nazario in such fine form, because from 2006, his career started to fall apart in a tragic way. Ronaldo spent one more year at Real Madrid, where the injuries continued to pile up, but this time it wasn't just injuries getting in the way of his football. He started to experience some weight issues and couldn't stay in shape. He was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which basically means his metabolism was slowed down and he put on weight much easier. So now Ronaldo was struggling with injuries, weight, and general fitness, which was seemingly getting the better of him. It didn't help that he fell out of favor with Real Madrid's new manager, Fabio Capello, who decided to ship him off to AC Milan in 2007 for £8 million. When Ronaldo arrived at AC Milan, he had this to say about his time at Real Madrid: "I would like to thank the fans who supported me all the time, and thank the teammates that I've had here and all the coaches I've had, except one." This was clearly a dig at Capello, but anyway, Ronaldo was now back in Italy, looking to jumpstart his career once more. What's interesting is that Ronaldo doesn't seem to care about club loyalty, having now played for both Barcelona and Real Madrid and Inter Milan and AC Milan. In Ronaldo's first season in Milan, he only managed to play 14 games, picking up 7 goals in the process, as the injuries and fitness issues persisted. Then going into his second season, they just got worse, as he only managed to play 300 minutes that whole year. Because of his inability to stay fit, AC Milan had to release him from the club in 2009, but Ronaldo wasn't going to give up on football just yet, because he was going to give it one last shot back home in Brazil. Before he was released by Milan, he suffered another bad knee injury, so he returned home looking for clubs to help him with his recovery. The Brazilian club Flamengo helped him for 4 months with his recovery and got him fit. Ronaldo claims to have grown up as a Flamengo fan, so it was looking like this was going to be a fairy tale ending to his career, signing for the club he grew up a fan of. The Flamengo fans were excited to have the legend join the club, but in a shocking turn of events, Ronaldo signed for Brazilian rivals Corinthians. The Flamengo fans were furious as they started to burn shirts of Ronaldo, but he just claims that he never received an offer from the club, so he chose to sign for a club that wanted him. Between 2009 and 2011, Ronaldo actually managed to play a total of 42 games in Brazil and bagged 24 goals in the process, despite the constant battles against injuries and weight gain. But on the 14th of February 2011, at 34 years old, Ronaldo decided to finally give in to his body and hang up his boots for good. After a total of 342 goals in 482 career games, Ronaldo had this to say: "It's very hard to leave something that made me so happy. Mentally, I wanted to continue, but I have to acknowledge that I lost to my body. The head wants to go on, but the body can't take any more. I think of an action, but I can't do it the way I want to. It's time to go." And that was that. Now, after retirement, he actually went on to buy the Brazilian football club Cruzeiro, which is where he started his career at just 16 years old, closing the loop on an insane story. But now it's time to take a look at R9's teammate, the man who saved Barcelona and made millions fall in love with football, Ronaldinho. In 2005, Ronaldinho won the Ballon d'Or, being named the best football player in the world. But just 15 years later, he was left with $5 in his bank account and was sent to a Paraguayan prison. But that's not all, because from the very start, his life was filled with the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. So, how did one of football's greatest ever players go broke and become a criminal? This is the full story of Ronaldinho.
Las opciones, Ronaldinho que se va solo, Ronaldinho, ¡gol!
El talonamiento, Ronaldinho buscando el gol del Barça, ha marcado el Fútbol Club Barcelona, ha marcado Ronaldinho.
Former Brazilian football star Ronaldinho and his brother are being detained in Paraguay.
On the 21st of March 1980, Ronaldo de Assis Moreira was born, who was later given the nickname Ronaldinho. His family was extremely poor, living in a Brazilian neighborhood that was known for being one of the poorest and roughest areas in the entire country. His father was an ex-pro player who now worked in a shipyard, and his mother was a full-time nurse, which, as you can imagine, didn't bring in much money for the family. But despite this rough start, the family was given hope before Ronaldinho even grew up, because he had a brother named Roberto who was 10 years older than him and was a talented footballer playing for Grêmio. When Ronaldinho was 8 years old, his brother signed a pro contract that saw him earn enough money to support the entire family, and as a part of this contract, he was given a nice house with a pool to live in. But right as life started to look hopeful for the family, things would change quickly. One day, when he was still only 8 years old, Ronaldinho returned home to find his family all in tears. His father suffered a heart attack, fell into the pool, and drowned. This was devastating for the family, and things would only go from bad to worse, because Roberto would soon suffer a devastating knee injury, meaning his pro career was in serious doubt, and the family's chance at a better life was slipping away. Without a dad, Roberto filled in as the father figure for young Ronaldinho and decided to take him under his wing. He trained him day and night to become a better football player, as he saw his little brother had the talent and the potential to be even better than himself. This dynamic between the two brothers was a constant throughout their lives, where Roberto took charge and Ronaldinho would follow blindly, and this is what eventually landed the two brothers in a Paraguayan prison cell, but we'll get to that soon. At 13 years old, playing in the Grêmio Academy, Ronaldinho really announced himself to the country by being part of a 23-0 victory, where he scored all 23 goals. This saw him get called up to the U17 World Cup, which he went on to win, becoming the next Brazilian wonder kid overnight. He kept rising the ranks at the Grêmio Academy, as he was so clearly a cut above the rest, and when he turned 18, he was finally handed his first professional contract. Ronaldinho spent 3 years at Grêmio, where he got better season after season. He made his debut at 18 years old in 1998, where he played a total of 38 games and picked up 6 goals for the year. In his second season, he played 47 matches and scored 22 goals. And then, in his third and final year with Grêmio, he scored 28 goals in 37 matches. But just goals alone don't represent fully the talent this kid had. Throughout his career, Ronaldinho was simply a joy to watch. He played football with a smile on his face and went out onto the pitch to entertain. During his time at Grêmio, one key moment stands out where he embarrassed the Brazilian legend Dunga with not one, but 2 ridiculous skills in the same match. But this embarrassment would come back to bite Ronaldinho, because a bit over a decade later, Dunga would become the national team coach, and he wouldn't forget this day. But anyway, with the talent he was showing in Brazil, it was obvious that the European clubs would come knocking for his signature. So in 2001, at 21 years old, Ronaldinho made the move across the world and signed for the French club PSG. Now, this wasn't the oil money PSG we know today. They weren't a strong club at the time, which is why Ronaldinho almost signed for Arsenal, but a failed work permit saw him opt for Paris instead. This move was engineered by his brother, who was now Ronaldinho's agent, and took care of anything important in his life. Ronaldinho started off the season in Paris as a squad player and took some time to settle into the first team, but after the winter break, he came back and scored 4 goals in 4 consecutive matches, landing him a guaranteed starting position. He had a strong first season where he would perform especially well in the big games, but despite his strong start, there was a lot of controversy surrounding the Brazilian wonder kid because the PSG manager claimed that Ronaldinho was too focused on Parisian nightlife rather than football. He loved to party and enjoy life to the fullest, and this would play a part in his eventual downfall. But in the summer of that year, he got the call up to the Brazilian national team to play in the 2002 World Cup, where he was going to announce himself as a superstar. You see, Brazil had a front 3 that just couldn't be matched. They were called the 3 R's for Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, and Ronaldo Nazario. This attacking trio blitzed the tournament and won the final against Germany. Ronaldinho pitched in with 2 goals, 5 assists, and 1 beautiful free kick against England. Ronaldinho became a world champion at 22 years old and was now a football superstar. So when he returned to Paris, he was handed the number 10 for the 02-03 season, and the same story continued. He showed up in big games with big moments, but wasn't fully focused on football. He finished his second season in Paris with 12 goals in 37 matches, and he dazzled the world with his dribbling ability this year. But this PSG team just wasn't good enough, because despite Ronaldinho's superstar status, Paris only managed to finish 11th in the league, which wasn't going to do it for Ronaldinho. So in the summer of 2003, it was time for a change. There were 2 clubs fighting it out for his signature, Man United and Barcelona. But with a bid of 30 million euros, the 23-year-old signed for Barcelona, where he was about to enter the best years of his career. In 2003, Barcelona weren't in a good place, but Ronaldinho can be seen as the catalyst who brought them back to the top of Spanish and European football. Xavi Hernandez says that Ronaldinho started the rise of Barcelona. He was handed the iconic number 10 jersey and scored on his debut. When Ronaldinho arrived at Barcelona, something seemingly changed within him. There were fewer and fewer stories of partying and drinking. It seemed like he was locked in and focused, and this was seriously reflected in his performances on the pitch, because in his first season, he scored 22 goals in 45 games, helping Barcelona to finish second in the league, but more notably, he was instrumental in their victory over Real Madrid that season, which was very significant as Barcelona hadn't beaten them in over 7 years. Something was brewing in the air at Barcelona, and they were ready to conquer football. In his second season at Barcelona, they blitzed the league, winning it for the first time in over 7 years. Ronaldinho was named the FIFA Player of the Year, and things just got even better from there, because in the 05-06 season, Ronaldinho won his second La Liga in a row and his second FIFA Player of the Year award in a row, but he also won the Champions League and the Ballon d'Or, meaning he was quite clearly the best player in the world of football. He had his career best tally of 26 goals in a season, but again, just measuring him on goals would be a disservice to him, because he was mesmerizing to watch. He was was a world-class creator, feeding Samuel Eto'o all season, but even more than that, nobody could dribble quite like him. He had that Brazilian flair like never seen before. This season also saw Barcelona defeat Real Madrid 3-0, where he picked up 2 of those goals, but what made this day so special was that the Real Madrid fans got up and applauded Ronaldinho, which is only the second time in history that the Real Madrid fans applauded for a Barcelona player. The only other time was for Diego Maradona, and that just shows the magic Ronaldinho had. In the following summer, there was the 2006 World Cup to play, 4 years on from Brazil's victory over Germany, and now Ronaldinho was even better than he was back then, and seemingly so was Brazil. Kaká, Adriano, Ronaldo, and Ronaldinho made the most fearsome front four in world football, but things didn't go as well as they did last time. This Brazil team was unbalanced, top-heavy, meaning they underperformed and saw an early exit in the quarterfinals against France. The Brazilian fans were distraught at such an early exit, but things got a lot worse very soon because right after the loss, Ronaldinho and Adriano threw a party which really rubbed the Brazilians the wrong way. They ended up tearing down a statue of Ronaldinho, and a lot of love was lost for the legend. This was also strange as everyone thought Ronaldinho had put his party days behind him to lock in and focus on football, but sadly, it seemed like after winning everything there was to win in football, Ronaldinho lost focus, and this was seen upon his return to Barcelona too. In the 06-07 season, there was nothing really to write home about for Ronaldinho. His performances dropped for the most part, but don't get me wrong, he was still a wizard with the ball. But now the attention in Spain was being put on a younger talent by the name of Lionel Messi. Going into the 07-08 season, things got worse for the now 27-year-old Brazilian because this year was plagued with injuries, not to mention his poor habits of partying and lack of fitness were all taking a toll on his performances, and it was looking like his prime years were now behind him. At this time, Pep Guardiola arrived at Barcelona and saw Messi as his golden boy. He thought Ronaldinho was going to be a bad influence on the young superstar, so he wanted to get rid of him. Ronaldinho now had the reputation of being a part-time footballer and full-time party boy, which was reminiscent of his younger years in Paris. So, at 28 years old, Ronaldinho was shipped off to the Serie A to sign for AC Milan, where things would just keep getting worse for him. Ronaldinho landed in Milan for the 08-09 season after he rejected the option to move to Manchester City. He was handed the number 80 shirt because his iconic number 10 jersey was occupied by Clarence Seedorf. This was a Milan team that was just coming to the end of its golden generation, but still had a bit more gas in the tank, which was actually quite similar to Ronaldinho himself. He started strong in his first season, but then he struggled with fitness, and as the season progressed, he was often left on the bench. He was seen to have a lack of dedication and training due to his party lifestyle, which obviously continued to speed up his decline. His manager, Carlo Ancelotti, said that this decline was not surprising at all. His physical condition was always precarious, but his talent was never in question. Ronaldinho's second season in Milan did not start well at all, but he soon found his form, which was similar to his prime years in Barcelona. Many speculate his effort levels this season were all to try to secure a spot at the 2010 World Cup, and his performances really did warrant that spot. He was moved onto the left wing under the new coach and was on fire. He finished as the league's top assister and finally got the Italian press on his side, with headlines being printed stating Ronaldinho revives his golden years. He had surely done enough this season to get the call-up to the World Cup, but the call-up never came. The Brazilian manager saw Ronaldinho as surplus to the team, but what was interesting about this is the manager at the time was the Brazilian legend Dunga, whom Ronaldinho embarrassed all those years ago. Many believe that this was simply an act of revenge, but anyway, after this summer, Ronaldinho had no more reason to put effort in and reverted back to his partying ways, which caused AC Milan to ship him out of the club in the January transfer window of the 2010-11 season. Ronaldinho signed for Brazilian club Flamengo at 30 years old and made sure to put a party clause in his contract, which stated that he was allowed to party twice a week, regardless of training or matches. After just one season here, Flamengo stopped paying his wages and Ronaldinho canceled his contract at the club. He then moved to Atletico Mineiro just 4 days after leaving Flamengo, where he actually performed very well. He helped them to lift their first ever Copa Libertadores by going on an insane run in the competition and was even awarded the Bola de Oro, which is the award given to the best player in South America. In 2014, he then moved to Mexican club Querétaro, where he spent 1 season before returning back to Brazil to play for Fluminense in 2015. He signed an 18-month contract at Fluminense, but only lasted 2 months, where he made 9 appearances and really failed to impress, leading to great criticism from the fans and thus a contract termination. After this, he went to play futsal in India for a couple of years before finally announcing his official retirement in 2018. Now, I wish his story ended here. A great but short career at the top and a slow decline till retirement, but unfortunately, that's not how this story ends, because just 2 years after he retired, he got involved in some serious legal issues which got him sent to prison and left with $5 in his bank account. Now, before I tell you about the crimes of Ronaldinho, I need to ask for your help. I put a lot of effort into these videos to make them the best videos possible, and all I ask is that you subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support and thank you, but now it's time for the crimes of Ronaldinho. So, how did this happen? Well, as you recall, Roberto was in charge of everything going on in Ronaldinho's life. All Ronaldinho did was play football and party, whilst his big brother handled all their business endeavors, and he was hardly one who played by the rules. In 2019, they had already been fighting legal battles against environmental issues, but they kept getting away with it until they finally were fined for building a fishing platform illegally in a protected area, and when the brothers failed to pay these fines on time, they confiscated 57 of their properties, along with their passports. Then, in March of 2020, Ronaldinho had to make a trip to Paraguay for a promotional event for his new book, but without a passport. His brother got resourceful. He sourced 2 fake passports and got on a plane to Paraguay. Now, maybe if this was you or me, this plan would have worked, but wherever Ronaldinho goes, the media follows, meaning as soon as he landed in Paraguay, he was spotted and arrested instantly. Ronaldinho had no idea what was going on because this was all Roberto's plan, and his lawyer even described him as an idiot. He said he was a child who never grew up, but this was no defense against using a fake passport. So the 2 brothers were sentenced to prison in Paraguay. During the investigation of Ronaldinho, they searched into his bank account to find he only had $5 to his name, and he was actually broke. Now, odds are he had money hidden away somewhere in some offshore accounts, but there's no confirmation of that, so he was legally broke. Ronaldinho and his brother spent a total of 32 days in prison, where he was said to have lost his smile. But at least he had a football in prison and actually took part in the Prison Cup, which was a futsal tournament between the inmates. His team obviously won the competition, but still was a rough month for him. On April 7th, he was let out of prison and allowed to live on house arrest, which he was then eventually released from and is now living life as a free man. Wow, what a roller coaster of a story. What a beautiful football player. It's just a shame that he couldn't maintain his peak years at Barcelona for longer, but as they say, a candle that burns twice as bright lasts half as long. Now, so many patterns can be drawn between the career of Ronaldinho and the career of Neymar, but still, this is one heck of a story. Neymar is one of the greatest football players of all time. At 19 years old, he was the golden boy of Brazilian football. At 22 years old, he was arguably the greatest dribbler on the planet. And at 25, he became the most expensive player of all time, as he was quite literally unplayable. But as incredible as his rise to the top of football was, there was always one thing missing. He was always just one step away from becoming the best football player in the world, but injuries, bad behavior, and poor career decisions all kept him from reaching that goal. Neymar! But the questions remain. Did Neymar really live up to his potential? How good were his prime years of football? And most importantly, how on earth did this poor Brazilian boy become one of the greatest football players on the planet? This is the full story of Neymar. Just like all Brazilian legends, Neymar grew up in a humble household in Sao Paulo, but even from the age of 4, it was clear he was a footballing prodigy. His dad was a former pro footballer himself and knew talent when he saw it, so he mentored his son, who would spend hours practicing his skills with incredible dedication and passion so that his natural ability didn't go to waste. When he wasn't practicing or playing street football with his mates, Neymar would watch videos of his idol Ronaldinho and try to copy his silky skills. By age 11, he joined Santos, one of the top clubs in Brazil, and it's there that he would face a relentless schedule that pushed him further and further, so that by the age of 14, he was so good he was even invited to Spain to try out for none other than Real Madrid. At this point, he and his father were faced with a huge choice to stay in Brazil or fly across the world to Spain, and unlike what many young footballers would choose, Neymar stayed in Brazil with his dad, saying cultural values were the most important thing for his humble family. But as you know, this was not the last time Neymar would get interest from the big European teams, but all that was yet to come, because for now, he was just starting to make enough money playing in Brazil to contribute to his family, and so at 15 years old, they were finally able to buy a house, doing so right outside of the Santos Stadium to give Neymar even better chances of success. By the age of 17, Neymar made his debut for Santos, and it only took him a week before he scored his first goal for the club. He went on to score 14 league goals in that first season, but it was his dazzling dribbling and creativity that really got the fans off their seats and even got sponsors to take note. This is when Nike swooped in, giving Neymar an 11-year contract as, day by day, the world was starting to take note of this young Brazilian boy tearing up football in Brazil. And that was only going to get crazier the next year, because in 2010, Neymar scored an incredible 42 goals in 60 appearances for Santos, leading 14,000 fans to sign a petition that Neymar should be included in the Brazil World Cup squad. But believe it or not, head coach Dunga said he didn't have enough international experience to go to the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, where Brazil would lose out in the quarterfinals. But Neymar wouldn't be too worried, because it wasn't long before Brazil got a new head coach and he would finally make his national team debut. And what a surprise, the 18-year-old scored after just 28 minutes of his debut, making that the first of many goals for the national team. Clubs were also really taking notice now, with Chelsea bidding $20 million for him and West Ham United also trying to get in the race. Neymar rejected these bids, saying he's only focused on Santos, but it was his agent who was pushing for a move, saying he wants to be the best player in the world. The chances of him doing that while playing in Brazil are 0, which, to be fair, is slightly better odds than the chances of it happening at West Ham. But anyway, Neymar's importance for Santos was growing so much that it even came to the point that when he had an argument with the head coach over who gets to take a penalty kick, the club decided to sack the coach, and that decision would prove to be the right one, because Neymar was about to lead Santos to glory as he scored 6 goals in the 2011 Copa Libertadores, including key goals in the semifinals and the final, where he won the Man of the Match award as Santos won South America's top football trophy for the first time since the days of Pelé in 1963. Meaning all of South America was singing the praise of Neymar Jr. Now, the thing about this period of time is we were seeing the rise of social media, and specifically YouTube clips, meaning that for pretty much the first time in football history, players like Neymar in the Brazilian league were being seen by football fans across the globe, going viral for skill after skill and dribble after dribble. But it was one specific goal which would really announce himself to the world with an incredible solo run against Flamengo, which won the 2011 Puskás Award for the best goal of that year.
Neymar, facilidade do Neymar, vai levitando o jogador do Santos. Aí o Neymar protegeu, fez o drible, que lance do Neymar, que golaço!
He was also named the 2011 South American Footballer of the Year and came 10th in the Ballon d'Or rankings despite still playing in Brazil. Come the next season, and Neymar would go back-to-back, winning the South American Footballer of the Year again, but now the pressure to move to Europe was mounting. Neymar had the potential to be the best football player in the world, and that destiny was never going to be fulfilled in Brazil. So, in May 2013, Neymar made the move across the Atlantic to sign for one of the biggest football clubs in the entire world, Barcelona. But before arriving in Spain, Neymar had international duty over the summer as Brazil played in the Confederations Cup, and Neymar showed up. He scored 4 goals, being named the player of the tournament as Brazil beat Spain 3-0 to win his first major trophy for the national team. He was the golden boy of the national team, and it looked like he was set to lead them to glory for the next decade. But as we all know, that's not quite what happened, with bad luck and bad habits getting in the way of it all. But more on that later. As it stood, Neymar Jr. was the latest Barcelona signing. He was the golden boy in Brazil 1 year out of the World Cup, which they were hosting, and he had just placed 5th in the Ballon d'Or. And believe it or not, the story of Neymar was still only getting started. It took 92 million euros to bring Neymar to Barcelona, making him one of the most expensive players in the world for the first time in his career. Real Madrid were also trying to get their hands on him that summer for the second time and had even been willing to pay more. On the pitch, Neymar started the season by winning the Supercopa de España, scoring the only Barcelona goal of the 2-leg match against Atletico. But overall, he failed to live up to the hype and said that for the first season, he felt like he was playing with butterflies in his stomach. He was playing with the likes of Messi, Iniesta, Puyol. Can you really blame him? But still, he still scored 15 goals in what was a rare trophyless season for Barcelona, apart from that Supercopa. But despite the disappointing season by their standards, they were silently building what would be the deadliest attack in football history, and Neymar was ready to grow into a central figure in that team. But before we head into the famous treble-winning season, Neymar headed off to the World Cup, hosted in Brazil, with the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was Brazil's talisman, their star player, and boy did he show it, scoring 4 goals in the group stage as Brazil cruised into the knockouts. They beat Chile on penalties in the round of 16, making it to the quarterfinals, which is when disaster struck for the entire nation. Neymar went to challenge for the ball, but was kneed in the back and fractured his vertebrae, meaning just like that, he left the pitch on a stretcher and his World Cup run was over. Brazil lost their star boy, and things just weren't the same after that. They still got through to the semifinals, but in possibly the most humiliating day in Brazilian football history, they crashed out after a 7-1 demolition job by Germany. Neymar was the diamond in the team, and without him, they lost their soul. This injury was one of the first in Neymar's career, but it was a sign of what was yet to come, as time and time again, it would be recurring injuries that just kept him one step away from becoming the best player in the world. But for now, he headed back to Spain and was ready back in action for the start of the next season. And with Luis Enrique at the helm of Barcelona, they were about to take it to a whole new level. Now, I have a question for you. What do you think happens when you put the most skillful player in the world, the deadliest striker in the world, and the best player in the world all in the same front three? Well, you get MSN, and the 2014-15 season was about to unfold. Neymar started with a bang, scoring 3 goals in his first 100 minutes of football, and despite having just recovered from an ankle sprain, he scored 11 goals in his first 11 league appearances. In the Copa del Rey, he was flying also because Neymar scored twice in the quarters, twice in the semis, and once in the final as Barcelona won the cup, showing the most insane skills and dribbles along the way. Looking over at La Liga, Neymar bagged 22 goals as Barcelona edged Real Madrid out to the title by 2 points, making that a domestic double for the season. But it was the Champions League where Neymar really showed his worth, scoring 10 goals overall, making that the joint most for season, including 3 in the quarterfinals, 3 in the semifinals, and 1 in the final against Juventus as Barcelona completed the treble, and Neymar edged his name into football history as one of the focal points of the deadliest attack in the history of football. Neymar finished the season with 39 goals, and MSN together scored an insane 122 goals. But while Neymar won everything possible for his club that season, he did not win many individual plaudits, and that was due to the M in MSN. While Neymar came 3rd in the Ballon d'Or, his best rank so far, he couldn't surpass Messi, who won the award for a 5th time. And whilst this may not have been a big problem yet, Neymar was starting to feel the shadow he was in and started to wonder whether playing in Barcelona he would ever be able to escape it and really fulfill his potential to become the best player in the world. I mean, all the talk at the time was how Neymar was the prince to take over from Messi and Ronaldo, so surely this was playing on the Brazilian's mind. But in football, you never know what is around the corner, and just 6 games into the next La Liga season, Messi suffered a knee injury that would keep him out of action for 2 months and give Neymar a chance to really step up. And boy did he shine. as Neymar hit the form of his life, even scoring 4 goals in a single game against Rayo Vallecano and managing to score 13 goals and get 9 assists in just 8 games, leading pundits to say he was the best player in the world at this time, and some of his goals were just insane, like this one against Villarreal where he flicked the ball over his shoulder and volleyed it in. And these weren't just goals against the small teams, because he was also instrumental in a 4-0 win over Real Madrid, scoring and doing a backheel assist for Andres Iniesta.
Iniesta. Nice lay off, Iniesta! Magnificent finish!
But of course, Messi did come back and Neymar was once again in his shadow as Barcelona won La Liga and the Copa del Rey for a domestic double, whilst Real Madrid won the Champions League, meaning Cristiano Ronaldo picked up the Ballon d'Or for that year as Neymar, yet again, dreamt of being named the best in the world. That summer, Neymar didn't get any rest as Brazil were hosting the Olympics, and the goal was simple: bring Olympic glory to his country, because whilst this was not a World Cup, it was still a trophy worth winning. He scored in the quarterfinal against Colombia and bagged a brace against Honduras in the semis before scoring his 4th of the tournament in the final against Germany, which finished 1-1 and went to penalties. Neymar stepped up to take the 5th and final spot kick for Brazil and scored to win Brazil an Olympic gold medal, which would prove to be the biggest international success of his career. But the Olympics took their toll on Neymar, who missed the start of the 2016-17 season and only managed 14 league goals in total as Barcelona finished 2nd in La Liga. In the Champions League, though, we probably witnessed the greatest comeback in the history of the tournament, spearheaded by none other than Neymar himself, as Barcelona overturned a 4-0 loss in the first leg of the quarterfinals against PSG by coming back to win 6-1 in the second, where Neymar scored 2 late goals and assisted to save the day for his club. But still, the club slumped out of the tournament in the quarterfinals, only winning the Copa del Rey. Now, Neymar is 25 years old, ready to enter the prime years of a football player, and he was really starting to believe he would never escape the shadow of Messi whilst he remained in Barcelona. Suarez and Messi pleaded for him to stay, telling him he will win a Ballon d'Or whilst playing there, but there were other opportunities calling out for Neymar, specifically one over in Paris, as PSG wanted to take their spending to the next level and finally go on to win the Champions League, meaning they prepared a world record €222 million bid to bring the superstar winger over to France, and just like that, MSN lost Neymar, and he was hoping finally he was going to take his rightful place as the best football player in the world. But unfortunately, that wouldn't be so straightforward. Now, obviously, with a transfer fee like that, Neymar was about to receive the paycheck of a lifetime, or so he thought, as his contract at PSG would make him the 2nd highest paid footballer in the world. But while everyone believed the move was to get out from under Messi's shadow and prove how good he was, Neymar's father denied that the move was to improve Neymar's Ballon d'Or chances, and Neymar also said it was partly because many of his Brazilian teammates were at PSG at the time. But the move elevated PSG to a new level and gave Neymar the chance to become a legend at the club if he could deliver a Champions League title. And Neymar started at PSG on fire, scoring on his debut, and said, "People think leaving Barcelona is to die, but I'm more alive than ever." And he had become part of a new deadly trio, not MSN, but CNM, Cavani, Neymar, and Mbappe. And Neymar's hot form put him back in the Ballon d'Or race, finishing in 3rd again, behind, of course, Messi and Ronaldo. And in January, he again bagged 4 goals in a single game against Dijon, including this awesome solo dribble. By the end of February, he had amassed 28 goals and 16 assists in 30 games. But then, disaster struck, because just as he was proving that he could shine without Messi, Neymar fractured his metatarsal, ending his season early in what would be one of the many injuries that would come at the worst time. Luckily, he recovered in time to play for Brazil at the 2018 World Cup, where he scored twice and got 2 assists as Brazil once again fell short, this time to Belgium in the quarterfinals. But Neymar's involvement in the World Cup was remembered not for his playing ability, but instead for his rolling around on the floor against Serbia, which was so bad that it became a viral meme, to the point that an actual English newspaper calculated he spent 14 minutes of the tournament clutching his ankle. But all those theatrics were due to the huge number of fouls and injuries he has suffered throughout his career. You see, there was two ways to look at it. A dribbler of his quality got so many knocks and hits throughout the last decade that surely he was more vulnerable, but also he was a bit of a baby. But anyway, by his own high standards, the next season was a disaster because although he scored almost 1 goal a game up until Christmas and became the top scoring Brazilian ever in the Champions League, another metatarsal fracture stopped Neymar from performing at the business end of the season, and without him, PSG were once again eliminated early from the Champions League. And off the pitch, Neymar got involved in controversy after controversy, including appearing to punch a fan in the face after a defeat in the Coupe de France final and skipping the end of season awards to party with Rihanna. Okay, we can excuse this last one, but the lack of game time coupled with the off-the-pitch controversies meant he was not even nominated for the Ballon d'Or. And to cap off a nightmare season, Neymar couldn't even impress for Brazil, as an ankle ligament injury ruled him out of the Copa America, meaning that the one time Brazil won the tournament during his career, Neymar had to watch it on TV. And all this led to Neymar feeling that France didn't appreciate him and even had a vendetta against him, leading to reports he would leave PSG and return to Barcelona, or perhaps even join Real Madrid. And to make matters even worse, Neymar left Barcelona to escape Messi's shadow, but with the amount of injuries he was getting, he was somewhat falling into the shadow of Kylian Mbappe, his new teammate, meaning life was just not going his way. But instead of leaving, he chose to stay at PSG and had his biggest season yet. Fitness issues and the Champions League suspension meant it was a late start for Neymar, who didn't play until PSG's 5th league game, and he also missed several games with a hamstring injury and bruised ribs. But in the 15 league matches he did play before the Ligue 1 season was cut short due to COVID, Neymar scored 13 and got 6 assists as PSG won the league, the cup, and the League Cup to do the domestic treble. But the 2019-20 season was all about the Champions League, and when Neymar could finally play, he helped PSG get past Borussia Dortmund with 2 vital goals in the round of 16 and grabbed an assist to push PSG past Atalanta in the quarterfinals. PSG then beat Leipzig 3-0 in the semis to set up a final against Bayern Munich. But unfortunately, PSG lost that match 1-0, and while it was the furthest Paris Saint-Germain had got in the competition so far in their history, the defeat left Neymar distraught, as he had come so close just to miss out on bringing greatness to Paris. And pundits agreed, with many saying he was the top player of the season, but typically, the Ballon d'Or was cancelled due to COVID, so there's no knowing whether Neymar could have beaten his previous third-place finishes. The following season saw Neymar pick up so many injuries and suspensions that it took him until May before he could play more than 3 league games in a row. First, he had COVID, then got a red card, then had adductor pain, then ankle problems. But despite this, he still managed a goal every 2 games and got 2 big assists against Bayern Munich to push PSG to the Champions League semi-finals. He still tried his tricks and flicks and even got booked in a game against Montpellier for trying a rainbow flick over an opponent, but all of Neymar's absences cost Paris Saint-Germain dearly as they missed out on the Ligue 1 title, finishing second behind Lille. And if Neymar had moved to PSG to be the main man, then that summer he was in for a shock, as PSG signed his former teammate/rival Lionel Messi, making Neymar the peanut in PSG's M&M attack with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. And by this time, Kylian Mbappe had become such a superstar in Paris that Neymar was not even the second in the trio, but the third. And he, of course, started the season with fitness issues and only scored once in the first 12 games of the season, and then an ankle injury would keep him out for all of the winter. So, after such a disappointing season, there were once again rumors of Neymar's departure. But the thing was that when Neymar is fit, he can still be a world beater, and he showed that at the start of the 22-23 season when he scored 7 goals and got 6 assists in the first 5 games, and was even praised by the head coach Christophe Galtier for playing the best form of his time at PSG, and that form came just in time for the 2022 World Cup. But unfortunately for Neymar, Brazil's opening match was against Serbia, who fouled him 9 times throughout the game, and one heavy tackle led to Neymar damaging his ankle ligaments, meaning he missed the rest of the group stage. He returned and scored in the round of 16 against South Korea and got Brazil's only goal in the draw against Croatia in the quarterfinals, but Brazil would lose on penalties, and Neymar would once again miss out on a major international trophy. And not long after that, an ankle injury against Lille would mean Neymar would miss the rest of the season too, as he just went from one disaster to another. That would be the last time he would play for PSG, who had a complete squad overhaul, even getting rid of Messi. And while there were glimpses of his genius at PSG, injuries meant Neymar only managed to play more than 30 games a season during his time in Paris, and Neymar even said, "I was in a position to win the Ballon d'Or, but injuries made it difficult." But while he was linked with a return to Barcelona, Neymar's high wage demands and injury record weighed heavily on any club looking to sign him. So when a huge offer came in from Saudi Arabia, Neymar took it. And at that point, Saudi Arabia had attracted some of the biggest stars, from Cristiano Ronaldo to Karim Benzema, but the biggest club in Saudi Arabia, Al Hilal, needed a statement signing of their own. And they targeted Neymar, offering him $150 million a year to be the jewel in their crown. This was a statement by Neymar, almost a step down from the top of football, in admission he was no longer looking to be the best in the world as he chased the money over glory, and the story just gets sadder from here. Neymar arrived in Saudi Arabia with a slight injury, and it took him until September before he played his first match, getting 2 assists in 26 minutes. And around that time, he would play 4 games for Brazil, including a 5-1 win over Bolivia, where he would score his 78th and 79th goals for his country, making him Brazil's all-time top goal scorer, ahead of even the legendary Pelé. And he would also get his 58th assist, which is the joint most of any footballer in international football. But in a match against Uruguay, he would go from these heights to the lowest point possible as he tore his ACL, and this injury would rule him out for the rest of the season, as once again, bad luck and injuries prevented Neymar from shining, as he had only played 5 games for Al Hilal at that point, and while he did play a few minutes in 2 games the following season in the Asian Champions League, his time in Saudi Arabia came to an abrupt end with the head coach Jorge Jesus saying Neymar can no longer perform at the level we're used to, and his huge cost for the club of almost 400 million euros for around 420 minutes of football meant Al Hilal paid Neymar almost €1 million per minute of football, causing many to label the move as the worst signing in the history of football. So, after this mess, Neymar decided to return to a club where he was loved and where he made a name for himself. He returned to Santos, and despite more injuries, Neymar seems to have found some of his form back at his hometown club, but still nothing compared to the beautiful football we saw his first time at Santos. Now 33 years old, it looks pretty clear that Neymar's career at the top of the game is over. And despite many labeling him as the prince who never became the king, I prefer to remember him as one of the most skillful players football has ever seen, and a player who inspired millions to play football the right way. What a legend. But now let's take a look at who is currently the best Brazilian football player in the world, and a man who genuinely should have a Ballon d'Or in his trophy cabinet. Vinicius Jr. grew up as a Brazilian wonder kid, but by the age of 17, the whole country laughed at him. He was able to sign for Real Madrid for 45 million euros, and for the first 3 years was labeled a flop until he finally became the best football player in the world. But despite his talent, he has also become the most hated player in all of Spain. So how did he do it? How did a 45 million euro flop become the best, but also the most hated player in the world? This is the full story of Vinicius Jr. Vinicius Jr. was born on the 12th of July 2000 in São Gonçalo, Brazil, a poor area in Rio de Janeiro. Vinny's first taste of football came in 2006 when his father took him to a feeder academy associated with Flamengo, where Vinicius was first documented as a left back, but very quickly they realized that he was destined to play higher up the pitch, as even from a young age he was lightning quick and could do magic with the ball at his feet. Vinny's family was poor, so much so that he had to go and live with his uncle just to be able to shorten the distance to training. But luckily for the family, when he turned 10 years old, he was handed his first youth contract with Flamengo, and the family started to receive financial aid from the club. This was a big deal because Flamengo were one of the biggest clubs in all of Brazil, meaning his family started to see his football ability as the ticket to a better life. And as time went on, they started to believe this more and more because Vinny dominated football at youth level, really making a name for himself. At 16 years old, he got the call-up to play for Brazil's under-17 team in the South American Championship. In this tournament, Vinicius toyed with his opponents and scored 7 goals, winning the tournament and finishing as the best player. And this is probably the best time he's had with the Brazilian national team in his whole career, because as time went on, things wouldn't go too well for him in his country. But more on that later. Now, this is when the biggest clubs in the world really started to take notice of the young Brazilian, as he was being talked about as the next Neymar. And Barcelona wanted to get their hands on him so badly that they were ready to pay pay Flamengo his release clause of 30 million euros. But Real Madrid weren't ready to lose another Neymar to Barcelona, so they got Flamengo to offer Vini a new contract with a new release clause of 45 million euros just to outbid Barca. And just like that, on the 10th of August 2010, Real Madrid got their hands on the next Brazilian wonder kid. But as much as Real thought they got a superstar, everyone in Brazil was laughing at this transfer because Vini Jr. had only just made his senior team debut 10 days before this signing, where he only played for 20 minutes. So Real Madrid broke the world transfer record for an under-19 player with major risks attached, as he was completely unproven, which led the whole country to think they got scammed. And for a while, they'd be right, until one day they wouldn't be right anymore. But we're gonna have to wait for that. For now, since Vinicius was under the age of 18, he couldn't get a work permit in Spain. So, before he could join the Spanish Giants, he had to spend the next 2 seasons at Flamengo, where things were quite rocky, to say the least. In his first season, he played a total of 37 games, where he only managed to score 4 goals and get 1 assist, which resulted in a lot of criticism from the Brazilian media. He was not playing well. He had poor decision-making and no end product, and with the 45 million euro price tag looming over his head, he was under even more pressure. He did manage to end the season strong though, and actually carried this into his second season in Brazil, where he scored 10 goals and registered 3 assists in 32 games. As his overall game improved drastically, he was happy on the pitch, always smiling and dancing, and now he had just turned 18 years old, meaning he finally got his dream move to Real Madrid. But little did he know that things were going to get very difficult for him. On the 20th of July 2018, Vinicius Jr. was presented as a Real Madrid player, and from the very start, something was just off. In his presentation ceremony, he struggled to do some simple tricks, and it was looking like the pressure of the biggest club in the world was going to be too much for him. When he arrived, he began playing in the B team until the end of September, when he was brought on as a late substitute to make his debut for the club. A month later, on the 31st of October, he was handed his first start in a Copa del Rey match, where he picked up 2 assists in a 4-0 win, and just 4 days later, he scored his first goal as he came on as a substitute against Real Valladolid. Things were looking good. He was becoming a regular starter, and by the end of February, he got his first call-up to the Brazilian national team. But everything came crumbling down on the 6th of March in a Champions League game against Ajax, where Vini would suffer a ligament tear that ended his season on the spot. As he recovered for the 1920 season, a few things had changed. Zinedine Zidane was back at Real Madrid for his second stint as manager, and they had just spent 100 million euros to sign Eden Hazard, who, unfortunately for Vini, was a left winger, meaning he was going to struggle to get into that starting 11, and when he would be played out of position. Even when Hazard was performing poorly, he was still chosen over Vini because Zidane had to try to make his transfer work, since he was the one who signed off on the 100 million euro deal. It also didn't help that Vini seemed to have lost any good form he had from last season. The same criticisms rang true again. He had no end product, he lacked composure, and it would get so bad that the Real Madrid fans would even boo him. When Vini finally scored his first goal that season, he broke down in tears on the pitch, as it had been 8 months since he was able to find the back of the net. Vinicius ended the season with 29 appearances and only 3 goals, and despite being crowned a La Liga champion, this was far from what he was hoping to achieve in Spain. But heading into the 2021 season, things just went from bad to worse, as now his teammates were starting to turn on him. This is footage of Karim Benzema at halftime of a Champions League match, telling Ferland Mendy, "Brother, don't play to him. On my mother's life. He's playing against us." This is how bad things got for Vini. Karim Benzema, a leader in the squad, telling his teammates to avoid passing to him. And remember, Vini's still only 21 years old at this point, meaning this could have and probably should have broken a young player like him. Real Madrid ended this season trophyless, and there was a lot of frustration in the fan base, and for some reason, the fans were targeting all their hate at Vini, even though Eden Hazard was playing just as badly and cost twice as much. Barcelona fans were also enjoying this very much, as they were so close to signing him 4 years ago, thinking he would be the next Neymar. But despite all the similarities in their style of play, now people were saying he would never be as good as Neymar because he just had no end product and wasn't able to score goals consistently. consistently, but things were about to change because heading into the 21-22 season, Real Madrid appointed a new manager in Carlo Ancelotti, and seemingly overnight, something changed within Vini. He was done being the laughingstock and was ready to become what he was meant to be, a footballing great. Now, over these next few years, Vinicius Jr. would go on to become the best, but also the most hated player in all of Spain. But before this season began, he was called up to play in the Copa America, where Brazil made it all the way to the final, but unfortunately were beaten by Messi in Argentina. Vini didn't really play a big role in this squad, but it was his first major tournament with the national team, so it was significant for him. As Vinicius Jr. landed back in Madrid after the summer of 2021, he was introduced to his new manager, Carlo Ancelotti, and it seems like it was love at first sight because this season we saw a whole new Vini. It's also important to note the amount of work Vini had been putting in, especially on his finishing, and this really showed as he opened the season scoring the fourth in a 4-1 victory for Real, having come off the bench, which is what cemented his starting spot over Hazard under Ancelotti. Real fans were starting to wonder if this is a new Vini or just a one-month wonder because they had never seen this level of composure from him before, and he just kept getting better. On the 30th of October, he bagged a brace to beat Elche 2-1 and send Real top of the table. These were his 8th and 9th goals of the season, meaning just 2 months into the season, he had broken his goal-scoring record of the previous 3 seasons. And he didn't stop there. He had quickly formed a killer partnership with none other than Karim Benzema, the one who just 1 year before was instructing the team to avoid passing to him. And by the end of this season, Benzema would go on to take back what he said, as he claims Vini came back a changed man this year. All in all, this season was amazing for Real Madrid. They lifted La Liga and the Champions League trophy, and this time round, Vini played crucial roles in both victories. He finished this season with 22 goals and 20 assists, which was more than his previous 3 combined, and he also showed up in the biggest games, scoring in the Champions League semi-final against Man City and then scoring the only goal in the final against Liverpool, meaning he was the reason Real Madrid were the champions of Europe. He was named as the Champions League Young Player of the Season and placed in both the La Liga and the Champions League Teams of the Season. Even though Benzema was the star man at Real Madrid this season, eventually going on to pick up the Ballon d'Or, it was very clear that Vinicius Jr. had finally evolved and become one of the best players at world football. But now, since his performances on the pitch were no longer something that people could attack, and since a lot of rival fans love to hate on Vini, they turned to the color of his skin instead, as he became a serial victim to many racist chants, attacks, and comments. Vinicius Jr. is a provocative player. He showboats, he dances, he loves an argument, and this makes him an easy target for the racists, and this is something that would continue to get worse over the coming seasons. Now, heading into the 2022-23 season, he kept his form up and actually bettered his output tally as he ended the season with 23 goals and 21 assists. Real Madrid fell short in La Liga, losing it out to Barcelona, and they were knocked out in the semi-finals of the Champions League by the eventual winners, Man City. But Vinicius still cropped up in big games like the round of 16 against Liverpool and the semi-final first leg against City. Vinicius did manage to lift the Copa del Rey, and this season also had a World Cup sandwiched in the middle of it, but as is now the common case, Brazil underperformed, meaning there isn't really much to talk about. This season, it seemed like it was the world against Vini, as he was by far the most tackled player in all of Europe, as so many players hated his style of play and would often find his trickery insulting, so there was a lot of extra aggression placed on him. The issue here was that the referees weren't doing much to protect Vini, and they often let things go by. There were also a number of incidents from fans showing pure hatred against Vini, like when there was an effigy hung of him, and the real boiling point of this year was the penultimate game of the season where Real Madrid faced Valencia. Vini had been receiving racist insults and comments quite frequently in many away grounds this season, but none seemed to be as bad as this game. Throughout the entire match, the chants and the comments were louder than ever, with the referee even having to pause the game. Vinicius walked up to the crowd and pointed at a specific few who had been hurling abuse at him all game. Tensions were very clearly high in the stadium, and towards the end of the match, a fight broke out amongst the players. Vinny was grabbed from his neck and he retaliated, pushing the guy off, but the referee decided to hand Vinny a red card for this. So, after being hurled abuse at and attacked, he was getting sent off, and this was obviously not going to end well for La Liga. Vinicius took to social media to attack the league's handling of this entire situation, and support poured in from the world of football. Vinny was fed up with all the hate, but he was just going to take this and turn this into fuel, as he was eager to meet Valencia again to get his revenge. So, now heading into the 23-24 season, his 6th year at Madrid, Vinicius Jr. was handed the number 7 jersey as Eden Hazard finally left the club. Karim Benzema also left to the Saudi League, meaning Vinicius Jr. was officially the main man at Madrid, and with the addition of Jude Bellingham and the continued growth of Rodrigo, boy, were they ready to cook. For the 3rd season in a row, Vinicius scored more goals than the last, as this year he picked up 24 goals in 39 games, but his performances were more than just stats, as he was simply unstoppable. On the 31st of October, Real Madrid announced a contract extension, which meant Vinicius was guaranteed to stay at the club for another 4 years. This was especially significant since people were speculating that he wanted out of Spain due to the heavy levels of racism, but Vinny preferred to take revenge, and in March of this season, he finally got to return to Valencia for the first time since his sending off. The game didn't start as he hoped, as Real Madrid found themselves 2 goals down, and, as expected, Vinicius was playing in his usual expressive style, and Valencia fans were abusing him for it. Luckily for Vinny, he was able to score 2 goals to level the game, celebrating the second, creating an iconic image in front of the Valencia fans. Jude Bellingham went on to score a late winner, but the referee blew the whistle right before the ball went in, meaning this historic game was overshadowed by a refereeing error. Despite this controversy, Real Madrid carried on to have a fantastic end to the season as they comfortably lifted the La Liga title, with Vinny finishing in the team of the tournament for the 3rd year in a row. In the Champions League, though, Vinny would step up his game even further as he finished as the player of the tournament with 6 goals and 5 assists, with crucial goals in both the semi-finals and the final to lift his 2nd Champions League. A couple crazy stats about this. He's now scored in the Champions League semi-final 3 years in a row, and he's the youngest player to ever score in 2 separate Champions League finals. Talk about a big game player. As the summer rolled on, Brazil played another Copa America with Vinicius, but yet again, nothing really to talk about. But this definitely does not take away from the season Vinicius Jr. had. He used to be told that he will never be as good as Neymar because he lacked the composure, but now he's on track to do what Neymar failed to do his whole career, as he is being talked about as the best football player in the world. And now, last but certainly not least, it's time for the story of the Brazilian superstar who was quite literally forced to become a football player. Every year, 1.4 million boys are born in Brazil, but on average, only 5 make it to top-flight football in Europe. Those are odds of 1 in 270,000. But what if I told you Rodrigo had different odds? Because from before he was even born, he had no choice but to become a football superstar, as his father engineered his entire life to make sure he becomes one of the greatest players of this generation. But still, this wouldn't come easy, as time and time again they risked it all just for the shot of success, but somehow, every time, the odds fell in Rodrigo's favor. But was this possible? How did a boy who was forced to become a football player become one of the biggest stars in the entire sport? He was set to be born in Sao Paulo on Christmas Day 2000, except he wasn't, because his father, a 16-year-old Eric Goes, had different ideas as he was planning his son's destiny before he was even born. You see, if you're born at the end of the year, you'll be the youngest player in your football team, and with every other kid being bigger and older than you, it's hard to stand out and get noticed by scouts, meaning your football career could be over before it has even begun. But Eric knew this, as he was a football player himself, and he was on a mission to make his son a great football player, so he told Rodrigo's young mother Denise to wait, and avoided taking her to the hospital because Rodrigo needed to be born in January to give him the best shot at football success. He told her, just keep him in there for a few more days, and he was counting down the seconds till New Year. And on January 9th, 2001, he came into this world with his father already mapping out a path to his greatness. Even as a toddler, Rodrigo would spend all day playing football, and by the age of 3, he was already shooting with his weaker foot, copying Neymar's haircuts and having Real Madrid birthday cakes, whilst his dad would tell him that words had power, so Rodrigo would say to himself out loud over and over again, "I'm going to play for Brazil, I'm going to play for Real Madrid, I'm going to win the Champions League, I'm going to play in the World Cup." Now, at the same time, Rodrigo's dad was trying himself to make it as a professional footballer in Brazil's Serie B, so he knew how hard it was to make it in a country where every kid wants to be the next Pelé, Ronaldo Nazario, or Neymar, and there are so many players with unbelievable skills who end up just missing out on their dreams, so because of this, he was tough on Rodrigo, especially when it came to football. Eric Ghost would be the referee for his son's futsal games, and instead of being an overprotective dad, he did the opposite, allowing Rodrigo's opponents to foul him all match long without giving a single free kick, and those opponents knew this, so they would kick Rodrigo all game long. But it was clear to see that everything his dad had been doing was paying off, because a fire had been lit inside Rodrigo, and he was in a rush to make it pro, so much so that at just 6 years old, he had got into the van of a random stranger who promised him the chance to play in a tournament, leading to his family to think he got kidnapped. Now, at this time, Rodrigo's dad's career was starting to take off, so Rodrigo would only see him at the weekends, and his dad would do his best when he was playing for Mirassol in the Sao Paulo State Championship. He took Rodrigo to all his games, including one match when his dad faced Neymar, and since Rodrigo had idolized him and watched so many of his games, he was giving his dad pre-game tactics to be able to defend against Neymar. But after the match, he got to meet his idol at Santos, and that was a life-changing moment for the boy. Santos was a club of legends, not just Neymar, but Pelé, Robinho, Ganso, and they believe every generation has a new legend, a new thunderbolt that strikes Santos, and people would soon believe that the next thunderbolt was Rodrigo. But at that time, he didn't play for Santos, as his academy, where he had been playing since he was 8 years old, was actually part of Sao Paulo, who are one of Santos's main rivals and Brazil's biggest clubs, and surprisingly didn't let youth players play competitive games until they were 15. But as you know, Rodrigo can't wait, because in Brazil, if you don't get spotted early, you can miss out on your dreams, so there was no choice. Rodrigo had to leave Sao Paulo and join local rival Santos, which was a full 2 hours away. But still, aged just 9, he turned up to a training session for older kids and blew everyone away. So he started training with Santos 3 times a week, but still kept training at Sao Paulo too, and this gave him a mad routine of training, school, and futsal for 5 tough years. Rodrigo would only see his dad, his hero and mentor, during the summer vacation, but soon this would all start to pay off, as Rodrigo would start catching the attention of watchers from all over the world, including sportswear giants Nike, who spotted him at a tournament in New York and signed him as their youngest ever affiliated athlete at the age of just 11. But it wasn't just Nike who took notice, because it wouldn't be long until he caught the attention of Brazil too, because Rodrigo was preparing for the main stage. As aged just 16, he had the chance to train with Santos' first team and soon found himself on the substitutes bench, with fans chanting for him to come on and make his debut. And while he only played 1 minute that day, it didn't take long for Rodrigo to become a regular player, skipping school at the age of 17 to score goals in the Copa Libertadores, including 1 goal against Uruguayan club Nacional, where Rodrigo dribbled past 2 players and put it past the keeper in what he called one of the most beautiful goals he has ever scored, and that goal would make him the youngest Santos player to score in the competition. Now, by this point, he was already being compared to Neymar, and even chose to switch his shirt number to number 11, just like him. And even more interestingly, at this time, the big European clubs started circling around Rodrigo, and he had the chance to join Neymar, as he had offers from Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. But this is where Rodrigo decided to risk it all to chase his dreams. Rodrigo was close to signing for one of those clubs for an absolutely incredible offer, but when most players would sign without hesitation, he made the decision to wait, holding off on signing the contract because he thought back to the mantra he told himself in the mirror every day as a kid: "I'm going to play for Brazil, and more importantly, I'm going to play for Real Madrid." So even though his dad was saying, "You have to take what you're given," Rodrigo took a wild gamble and told his dad to give him 1 more game before deciding his future, saying he was going to score a hat-trick, and that would be enough to convince Real Madrid to come knocking. And believe it or not, he scored in the 22nd, 26th,
Rodrigo domina, Rodrigo faz a finta, Rodrigo chega, pé direito, bateu Rodrigo!
and 31st minutes of the match,
Rodrigo, pro Rodrigo, gol!
completing a hat-trick in 9 minutes. He got home and asked his dad if Real Madrid had called, but his dad said, "Nope, Nothing. Rodrigo was devastated and just spent the next day sulking at home, but when his dad came home that night, he had a surprise for his son. He had a Real Madrid shirt with Rodrigo written on the back, as his dad had got a call right after the game and secretly met Real Madrid to secure a deal, but didn't want to tell his son until it was all confirmed. But this now meant that aged just 17, for a fee of 45 million euros, Rodrigo was Real Madrid's latest signing, and his dreams would finally start to come true. But as much as he says the day of his Real Madrid press conference was the happiest day of his life, little did he know all the struggles he was going to face in the Spanish capital, but ultimately the glory he would achieve. But he's not the only person who dreams of glory, because whilst Rodrigo dreams of the Bernabeu, I dream of being the biggest football YouTuber, so subscribe to help me get there. But now as Rodrigo arrived in Madrid, he was so young that his dad was actually a similar age as some of the Real Madrid players. So he started calling guys like Luka Modric father, and just like his dad had done for the previous 17 years, Modric kept pushing Rodrigo to be better. In September 2019, Rodrigo made his debut for Real Madrid, coming on in the 71st minute against Osasuna, and not long after, he controlled a long ball from Casemiro and produced some magic to score his first goal for Real Madrid, becoming the first player born in the 21st century to score a goal for the club. And when I say it didn't take him long, it actually only took just 93 seconds. And soon, he would make his mark on the Champions League too, when in November against Galatasaray, he scored his first Champions League goal just 4 minutes into the match, then would score again 2 minutes later for the fastest ever double in the Champions League. And when Real Madrid won a penalty a few minutes later, he might have scored the fastest ever Champions League hat-trick, but Sergio Ramos took the spot kick instead. But still, Rodrigo kept going and scored right at the end of the game to complete his hat-trick, making him the second youngest ever player to score a hat-trick in the Champions League. Following his early success in Madrid, it wouldn't be long until another one of his dreams would come true, because one night he was woken up to screaming downstairs. He rushed down wondering what was going on, and his family told him he had just been called up to play for the Brazilian national team, meaning he was going to play for his country and play alongside his inspiration and idol, Neymar. And he had achieved the second of his mantras, I will play for Brazil. But after that bright start, Rodrigo began to struggle at Madrid, scoring only 3 more goals in his debut season and playing less than 1,000 minutes in La Liga in 2020-21 as he suffered from a hamstring injury. At this point, some Real Madrid fans even started labeling Rodrigo as a flop and suggesting that he should be sold. They saw the signings of Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr. as gambles on young players with potential and said Real should have signed seasoned pros instead. And to make things worse, Rodrigo simply didn't fit into Real Madrid's attack. His best position, where he played for Santos, was on the left wing, and in his entire time in Brazil, he only played on the right wing 4 times. He said, "Since I was a kid, I started on the left, and it's natural for me to play better in this position." But with Vinicius Jr. locking down the left wing, and with mega money signing Eden Hazard also competing for the position, Rodrigo was forced to play on his weaker side, and his performances slumped in Zinedine Zidane's final year at Real. But even under Carlo Ancelotti, his struggles continued going into the start of the 21-22 season. But then, Rodrigo started to hit some form, with 7 goal contributions in the final 8 games of the league season, showing glimpses of what a player he could be and helping push Real Madrid over the line to the La Liga trophy. But it was in the Champions League where Rodrigo really made a name for himself. Real Madrid had a tough campaign, narrowly beating out PSG in the round of 16. Then roll on to the quarterfinals, and they came up against Chelsea, where they won the first leg 3-1, but found themselves 3-0 down in the second leg, meaning they were losing 4-3 on aggregate. But it was at this point that Carlo Ancelotti turned to the substitutes bench in the 78th minute and told Rodrigo to simply change the game. Moments after he came onto the pitch, he received a pass from Luka Modric and shot inside the keeper's near post to level the scores and take the game to extra time. And Real managed to get another goal in extra time to send them to the semi-finals, where they faced Manchester City. They lost the first leg 4-3 and were down a goal in the second leg, so needed 2 goals to force extra time. And once again, Rodrigo was called upon to change the game. But the game was already done, with the TV screen giving Manchester City a 99% chance of winning the game, and Real Madrid a 1% chance. But with 40 seconds of normal time to go, Rodrigo scored, and with 6 minutes of added time, they had some hope. And when the cross came in, Rodrigo jumped to meet it and scored a second of the game to level the scores. And the rest is history, as Real Madrid went on to win the Champions League, and Rodrigo ticked off the third of his dreams, winning the Champions League. and a few months later, he would tick off the final one as he played for Brazil at the 2022 World Cup. But while this should have been the peak of his career, it didn't go to plan, as Brazil had been among the favorites, but in their quarterfinal match against Croatia, the game went to penalties and Rodrigo took the first penalty and he missed, meaning Brazil were eliminated. But since then, his impact on both Real Madrid and Brazil has grown and grown, and he's become something of a Champions League specialist, with vital goals against Manchester City in the run to his second Champions League trophy with Real just 2 years later. Rodrigo has also adapted to his role on the right wing so well that it now gives Real Madrid's overcrowded attack proper balance, with Mbappe and Vinicius often on the left-hand side of the pitch. It's clear that without Rodrigo's skill, sacrifice, and hard work, the team would be so unbalanced it just wouldn't function, which is why people say he's the underrated hero of the current Real Madrid side. And while he's no longer the upcoming prodigy, people forget that he's still only 24 and is now valued at more than $100 million, which makes it even more strange that he's yet to feature on any Ballon d'Or shortlists, as the media just keeps leaving him out of the spotlight. But I'm sure he's going to prove them wrong.